Manny Laura here with the Awesemo Week 9 main slate show presented by our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Manny, good morning, man. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, man. Another week, man. Another chance at a big score, hopefully. Taking down some life-changing money, hopefully. And all we can do is make our best plays, put ourselves in the right positions, and hopefully it falls our way, man. So pretty excited about week 9.
Man, I mean, you talk life-changing money. Right before we got on the show, Manny said he eats an acai bowl every single day for breakfast. He doesn't even make it. He goes and buys it. So hashtag how rich are you? Wow.
Not at all. Dude, I need to get out of my house. If I make breakfast at home and then I work at home and then radio's at home and then fantasy is also at home and everything is at home, I will never leave my house. So I got to leave, even for $12, I'll leave my house every day, dude.
You know what? It's so true, bro. I definitely get what you're saying. Because you get so comfortable.
4 walls.
I tried doing stuff at coffee shops, then it gets a little too hectic. So I'm like, right. We got to bring it back to the house.
Fair.
All right, guys. So listen, man, we got a nice little week 9 main slate. We're gonna break down game by game as we always do, but I kind of wanted to switch it up this week. And early on, what I want to do is go over probably just one tip for Fantasy Cruncher, and then I just wanted to go into like a little buy or sell action with some of the updated ownership that we got. So, first, I want to talk about one thing with Fantasy Cruncher real quick, and I think it's a constant thing that people are still trying to figure out, and I think you're the best one who can answer this, and it's just diversity and exposure. It seems like people are still struggling with, not correlations, but having that extra 5 or 10% Tevin Coleman that they didn't have, or, banking on the Giants last week and Daniel Jones. It's just all these different nuances. It seems like people are still struggling with it. And if there's just one tip that you can give people when it comes to exposure and diversity within the lineups, if they're multi-entering, I guess, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that quarterback is the position that leads everything in fantasy football, right? It's what your stacks are made of. If you're playing game stacks, you're obviously game stacking the game your quarterback's in. So quarterback is really important, and I'd focus 100% on quarterback if you can, right? Everything else will kind of just make itself. Quarterback has 2, sometimes 3 pass catchers with him, has an opposing player with him, and if you're picking the wrong quarterbacks or quarterbacks that over time really won't make you money, you're going to have a tough time. And for me, this last week, I was on pretty much all the big-time QBs. The only thing we failed on was Tevin Coleman, and obviously that kind of hurt you. But I'd say don't try to hindsight more the Tevin Coleman situation. Is try to hindsight, did you make correct plays at QB and game stacking and team stacking? If you did, you'll have success regardless of variance throughout the course of a season. So just focus on QB is my main part. That's probably the biggest thing for me.
If you're using Fantasy Cruncher, and obviously when you dive into the advanced options and those tools, for those of you that have them, you have this randomness feature, right? And I guess where people are at right now, we're going into week 9. There's a lot of different kind of sample sizes now that we can use to justify our lineup constructions. And when it comes to randomness, what would you say is just a given range that people should have when using randomness for their percentages?
Yeah, I think anywhere from 5 to 15, and I'll answer both type of randomnesses, right? So, sorry, for those that don't have FC Pro, you can use somewhere around 5% because anything bigger than that, it's truly random, to where the software is just picking at random a point between that range for a player, and there's no consistency to where it's going to pick it. That's similar to every other randomness in the industry. The FC Pro randomness uses kind of like a bell curve, right? Where it's like a normal distribution, and it'll use points that are closer to the actual projection of your player, making it to where even if you set 10, 15% randomness, you're still going to get more situations where it's closer to the projection than, say, a random number 10 points away from the projection, which is something you can get with the old randomness. So I'd say anywhere from 10 to 15, depending on which one you have.
All right, we're going to do a little thing I told you about earlier. So we're going to do a buy or sell with ownership projections, okay?
Let's do it.
We got DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll break those down, and we'll just go over the top 5 right now, current updated Awesemo projection ownerships, okay?
Let's do it.
So Christian McCaffrey coming in number 1 right now, 28.8% at home against Tennessee. We buying or selling or with the field?
I mean, I think you have to buy only because after what we saw last week against San Fran, and he played like 3 quarters almost, he still had 30 fantasy points. Like, I mean, he's doing this against the very best defense. He does it against the very worst defense. He does it against anyone. He's matchup proof for me. Like, there's, I mean, if you have the money to spend on McCaffrey, there's no safer money in DFS right now than CMC. It's plain and simple. So yeah, I'll buy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're gonna just go back to the talent is superior to any type of defensive.
That's what it's looking like, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at his price point, it's like, it doesn't really matter at this point because just he's on the field every single play, and he's had games where 30, 40 yards rushing, but yet he gets a touchdown catch, he gets in the end zone on the ground, and next thing you know, he has 30 fantasy points, and you're like, how the hell did he get there? So yeah,
he always has the ability to break a big one too, like he did last week, right? So.
Right, big play upside as well. Nick Chubb, second, 23.9%. Going into Denver, 7,300 price tag at the running back position. Buy, sell with the field.
Yeah, I think you have to buy here too. I mean, he just looked so solid. This is another one where it doesn't even matter the matchup to an extent either, right? You saw the New England matchup last week, and he was just running all over these guys, man. He's had already 300-yard games, but most of those games, like, there's been times where either he has 2 touchdown upside or he doesn't score anything and it's just yards. And if the yards are going to continue to be there, look at his last 5 games: 96 yards, 165, 87, 122, 131. And in there has also been San Fran and New England. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's another spot where Denver is not nearly as strong as they used to be on defense, and I like Chubb, man. He's just such a good runner. As long as he doesn't fumble, that I feel okay playing him pretty much every week.
I agree. I think what we're looking at here is when you think of an identity for the Browns, I think the only identity we could think of is the running game, and something that they stick true to. And I think what is probably the most positive note of this with Chubb is he fumbled 2 times last week against New England, and they still ran with him, and they still had that confidence. So if there's anything that you have to worry about, I don't think there's anything there when it comes to his 7,300 price point. I mean, yeah, going into Denver's a little bit of a hostile environment, but I think you made a good point that they're not as good of a defense as we probably originally thought to begin the season.
Yep.
Le'Veon Bell coming in next, 23%. Going to be playing against Miami this week. This is kind of like a dream matchup for Le'Veon Bell. But I got to admit, at 7,700, with what we've seen, I'm not discrediting his talent. I'm really just against Adam Gase and how he's running this offense.
Yeah, so I obviously do the weekend show with Laffy on Sirius XM, and we talked about Le'Veon Bell at length last week to the point where we were just telling everyone, go buy Le'Veon Bell. Just go rush right now to buy Le'Veon Bell. It's not just this week. Le'Veon Bell's going to be chalk for this week against the Dolphins, next week against the Giants, then the week after against the Redskins, then the week after against the Raiders, and then he gets the Bengals and the Dolphins again. I mean, it's dream matchups the rest of the way for Le'Veon. So yeah, I'm right there. I'm right with the field. I think I have him as my 3rd highest RB this week.
So do you think we see a change in volume now?
Yeah, I think they have much better game scripts. The games are much more competitive. They're much softer defenses. I think you could see 25 touches per game the rest of the way for Le'Veon Bell.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little shocked that his ownership is that high, given what we've seen as far as production over the last few weeks, and seeing that he's not getting the heavy workload that you would think someone of his caliber of talent would get. And so I would maybe just like to see his ownership a little bit down more. But it's a dream matchup, great spot for him. I think if they have any chance of winning, essentially, I mean, they do need to run the ball, and they do need to use him in the passing game as well. Chris Carson, next, 22.5%, 7,200. Another running back, and this is at home against one of the best, if not the best, rush defense in the league with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a sell for me. You mentioned it perfectly. It's probably the best run D there is, and when that's the case, I mean, it's just a tough team to run against. That's pretty much all it is. I mean, he's had, apart from volume, he's had just 3 really good games this season out of the 8 they've played. Right? To me, I think you can have sometimes you can perform a little bit better with the given volume. And listen, if he didn't have that Arizona game, then the Rams game where they actually played extremely well, and then Cleveland has been a horrible team all season. He didn't perform well against Atlanta, nothing against Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. New Orleans, like I think he's been okay, and I think we're so in love with the volume to the point where it's like, yo, Chris Carson's volume, yeah, we got to play him every week. But I don't know, the last 2 weeks hasn't really done much, and obviously this is a really, really tough matchup. So I don't know. I'm just not there. I've made my lineup so far, and if I have 5% of Carson, I think that's a lot.
What I originally thought was when I saw Chris Carson this high, I go, okay, well, this passing game is going to be a little bit down more on the list when it comes to ownership. And I was completely wrong. I mean, right below Chris Carson, a little bit more is Tyler Lockett, and right behind him, DK Metcalf, and right behind him, Russell Wilson. So it seems as if everyone's going in on this Seattle Seahawks offense this week. But I think where you attack is definitely the passing game, because that's the weak area, this secondary of this Tampa Bay defensive unit. They've been just getting absolutely torched. So I think for me, if Carson was 5%, I would run with that. But considering he's so high and the matchup is just not good, I think you can pivot elsewhere. I mean, Nick Chubb's only, $100 more. So yeah. I think there's other options there. For sure. Darren Waller, 6,300. Got a nice little matchup at home against Detroit, 21.2%. Highest tight end on the board for this week. Is this a buy, sell, or are we with the field?
I'm kind of in between. If anything, I lean more sell, and it's not because of his performance last week. Just the 2 catches for 11 yards. Thankfully, he got in the end zone, because if not, that's 3 fantasy points on the day. Like, it had been a pretty pedestrian game for him. And then if you look at how he performed, I don't know, like the last 3 weeks, it hasn't been like outside of that Green Bay game, hasn't been much outside of TDs. So which is fine, but I mean, you need catches and you need yards eventually, right? So for me, I'm just not there. I don't know if this is the best matchup either per se. I like him as a just a pure tight end, right? His talent's through the roof. But if you look at what's around him at the position, like I think there are some pretty decent spots this week, and I don't know. I'm willing to forego Darren Waller, especially when and I know it's going to sound terrible, but Ertz is 4.7, Darren Waller's 6.3. I mean, eventually price is a thing, right? And I don't know. I'm just not on Waller this week.
So that was going to be my next question. And, I said it was a nice matchup because Detroit does struggle somewhat against tight ends. I think it's top 12 that they're surrendering the most fantasy points. So it's better than, I guess, the Bears per se when it comes to the matchup for Ertz. But then again, you look at Ertz, it's 4,700. I mean, he's priced significantly too low for the level of talent that he is as a player and for that offense. But a lot of people have said that Deshaun Jackson's injury has really hindered Zach Ertz and the passing game because he's getting a lot of double coverage and, he's not getting as many looks and they're looking elsewhere. But I think at 4,700 with a guy who can definitely go out there and catch 8 or 9 balls and get in the end zone, and they're going to throw the ball. And I think right now, Chicago, they've shown a lot of vulnerability on the defensive side. So at home game for Philly, I think we see maybe they thrive here. And when it comes to pivoting, I mean, you're saving $1,600 at the tight end spot for getting someone who is probably equal talent when it comes to the tight end position.
Yeah, for sure. If anything, they just got to use him, right? I mean, he just doesn't have the volume this year, man. You're talking about a record-breaking season last year, and then coming into this season, absolutely nothing. If we could see even just double-digit targets, I don't care if he catches them or not. Just give him double-digit targets. It's clearly you're one of your best options, if not your best option on through the passing game, and still does not have a 100-yard game this season and has just 1 touchdown. I don't know, something's got to give. And then you look at the matchups, and it's I kind of see why he's been struggling, right? It's been a lot of Buffalo, Minnesota, Jets, Green Bay. All these teams are really tough defenses. I don't know. I know Chicago's still pretty tough, but the price discount eventually has to play a factor, and that's pretty much what it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too long ago where he was Darren Waller's price, 6,300. But he was getting 16 targets, 7 targets, 8. I mean, then it just dropped. Now we're seeing 5, 4. So just not heavily involved. But, we saw a bump in usage, I guess, for Dallas Goedert, who, has seen quite a bit of, I guess, more of a role in this where he's scored touchdowns. He's getting targets. So, he's 3,100. And I was going to ask you, when you look at that, could you go with Dallas Goedert at 3,100?
That's so tough for me because it's not that he's a bad tight end or anything. It's just it's such limited. He's kind of just stealing production from Ertz. But are we willing to go with the guy that's kind of stealing production, right? Because the touchdowns have been to Ertz to Goddard, but it's still the same thing, like 5 targets, 4 targets. He had 1 week of 8 targets, but then it's been 3, 3, 1, 3. Like, if we're really banking on 3 or 4 targets, but just banking on that touchdown, first of all, that's not real upside. It's just like a price play, which I'm not in favor of. And then it's still so risky because the guy gets such little volume. We're still banking on what, like 10, 11 fantasy points. And then when he gets 10 or 11, we're like, all right, yeah, he got me to Valley. He got me 3x, 4x. Like, in football, I don't really like doing that. And I don't know. If he had more volume, sure. And he was clearly the number one, sure, but he's not. So.
You think this is the Jonnu Smith talk that was last week, man?
Oh my goodness!
That was I know
that was horrible, dude. I know. I can't believe that happened, dude.
It's just it's one of those things where he was talked about so much last week, and obviously I don't know if it's me being stubborn, but I had no interest. I just felt like I really liked Evan Ingram. I really like other spots, and I was willing to pay that for those spots, but yeah, just sometimes you come across these instances and I'm thinking like, man, is Dallas Goedert going to be that guy this week when, we're so liking Ertz, but then again, they just pivot to the second tight end. FanDuel is a little different. Actually, no, it's actually the same when it comes to the same group of 5 people we just discussed with one outsider. That's Dalvin Cook. He comes in at the 4th most owned right now at 25.7%. So going into KC, we've seen this Chiefs defense really struggle against the run. And so even Houston 3 weeks ago, we saw Indianapolis with Marlon Mack just control the chains and really be able to move the ball with the running back position. And then we saw Green Bay not necessarily run all over them, but attack them in the passing game with the running back position, which was a little interesting. So at Dalvin Cook at 9,000, buy, sell, we with the field.
I think I'm actually going to sell on this one. And I think that's surprising for some, right? Because feels like it's a pretty good matchup, obviously a healthy total, and it's actually weird that as of now I'm seeing it at some places a pick 'em, right? So like they're expecting the Vikings to put up points and compete with this team, and rightfully so. I think they have a good enough team to do so. The thing for me, and I think this is how I look at it, is there's also value at the running back spot, right? We have the best value on the board at this position. We also have a few guys we've already talked about that we really, really like, right? Whether that's CMC or Le'Veon or whoever. I think there's really good spots on running back where I'm not sure I have to go for Dalvin and pay that price. You know what I mean? Everyone has a free square at running back, and then whatever you do with your other running back spot and flex is what can kind of separate you. And I don't know, paying up for Dalvin doesn't seem like the best option for me when constructing a lineup. Is he a good play? Yeah, of course. But if I'm trying to make the best lineup, I think I go elsewhere.
So it's a great point, because when you look at ownership, specifically for FanDuel, out of the first 7 or 8 guys, 7 of the first 8 guys that are owned are running backs. Yep. with the other person being a tight end and Darren Waller. And so I guess, when you see these high price running backs that are highly owned, but then so is the value not being touched. And so that's interesting, because do you do the opposite of you go for the value guys at running back? And I'm not saying Dalvin Cook's not a great play, because I believe he is. And I'm sure that I'll have shares of multi-entering. But I guess my question is wide receivers seem to not be as owned this week. So is the game plan to go where you can be, I guess, somewhat contrarian, but still optimal with going a little bit more value at running back and getting the high price receivers? Because I'll tell you what, when it comes to high price guys that have high upside, that project very well, if they have low ownership, I like to buy more into those shares. But if they're heavily owned, yeah, I'll be with the field or maybe a little bit under, but then I like to go in other areas where, there will be not as owned and yet high upside, maybe at the wide receiver position, maybe at the tight end position. So is that an optimal play, or could that be an approach this week when it comes to strategy, looking at how all these top tier running backs are being such highly owned?
Yeah, it's apparently we have the money to do so, right? And then just kind of looking at my lineups, there are some spots where I feel good about our lineups, and it's not just the running back spot to where you can pay up if you want to, but wide receiver has also come down in price just a little bit. If you look at guys like Devontae Adams coming back, hasn't played in a little bit, his price is lowered. Keenan Allen and his, I don't know, struggles the last, it's almost been 5 weeks now, has dropped his price, significantly across the board. Like there are some players, Chris Godwin, like depending where you're playing, like there's some players where okay, like they're way underpriced for what I think they should be. And with the given value at running back, you have the ability to go whichever way you want. And I think people are just focusing more on running backs, and that's their choice.
We'll round out real quick. One more guy, because he just breaks right underneath Nick Chubb, and that's Josh Jacobs, 7,200 at home against Detroit, coming in at 24.1% on FanDuel. So we buying, selling, or with the field?
No, I think I'm gonna sell a little bit. Yeah, first of all, there's so many options here that it's tough to just fit all of these guys, right? And then if there's one that I like the least, I don't know. Is he still really banged up? He was still questionable throughout the week. He didn't look, he ran okay, but he didn't look, completely healthy in last week's matchup against Houston, right? I think they should have ran the ball a little bit more, given that they were scoring in that game. And I don't know, it just wasn't there, right? I know he had a couple penalties go against him, so it's kind of unfortunate, but I don't know. I think I just like other guys better. The price tag on him has gone up just a tad bit because of his recent performances. So yeah, I'm just not really there right now.
All right, we're gonna go into the main slate now, break down game by game, give a nice little opinions, and really just see kind of, are there value plays? Where can we go in each game? But before we do, once again, let's thank our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They got the nice 250K baller tournament this week, $10 entry. And for those of you who haven't signed up with Yahoo yet, if you sign up and use the promo code AWESEMO, you get $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. And what that can get you is 3 entries into the NFL 250K baller this week. 25K up top. Pretty solid tournament. If you're looking to multi-enter, you can do CSV uploading now. So if you haven't signed up yet, use the promo code AWESEMO. And don't forget, you get $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Week 9 main slate. First game we're going to go into. Houston Texans at Jacksonville Jaguars. Current line right now is 1.5, over under 46.5. I mean, Deshaun Watson, man, incredible talent right now. He looks absolutely great from what I've seen over the last few games. Is this an area that we can go back to?
Yeah. So I think this is the early game, right? If that's the case, then yeah, if you have that on the slate, I think he's all right. I think I like games better, right? But if you're talking, listen, he's always going to be in play because of his rushing upside, number one. He always seems to make plays. You always have guys that you can pair with him. If you're looking at game stacks, there's obviously guys on the other side you'd love to run it back with. And it just seems to be another fine spot for Deshaun Watson if you're throwing him into the pool and into the mix of everyone else. And I think I like guys better, but definitely not a bad play by any means, no.
Yeah, I knew it was an early game, but I know some people always, they get their degenerate selves going and they want to play the early slate. So I figured if we had any opinions toward it real quick, we can roll with it. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars passing game's in play. I think DJ Shark's a good option. Don't mind Gardner Minshew as well, and obviously Leonard Fournette. I mean, if you're looking for volume, you can go that way too. I think if you're looking for someone who's a sneak play, Chris Conley, D.D. Westbrook, who I know hurt both of us last week. Yeah. I know you had a lot of shares. I had quite a few as well. He went down with an injury, and to be honest with you, Chris Conley stepped up, had a 70-yard touchdown catch. So in the slot, I don't mind that as well.
Yep.
Down. All right. Now we'll officially go into the main slate. My mistake. Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, 4.5-point spread, 41.5 over under. We spoke about Ertz already, but let's go elsewhere. Where do you see yourself going in this game?
Yeah, Alshon Jeffrey's also pretty cheap too. I saw YouTube chat talking about it. So yeah, the combination of Jeffrey, Ertz, and say Wentz doesn't seem like a bad option this week. I don't think so. I know people have, or people just blindly see Chicago on the schedule, and it's, well, I don't want to. I can't play against them. No, I mean, I think you can. I think there's a decent shot here. Vegas seems to think they'll score a healthy amount of points, and if it comes through the air, then awesome. I think that's Wentz, maybe to Ertz and Jeffrey, and they have the ability to exceed their price tag by a big margin if they do have a pretty decent game, right? I think who you want to run it back with from the other side if you choose to do so. And when that's the case, that for me, I absolutely love games like these. I don't think Wentz will be that highly owned either. So if you want that separation in tournaments and the uniqueness from the field, then I think you get that in this game too.
Alshon Jeffrey's $5,000 on DraftKings.
Yep.
Is that criminal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he should be 5K. Well, it's the whole, it's Chicago or whatever, right? He's been 6K or higher pretty much every week except last week because he had Buffalo, and then
Yeah.
this week he has Chicago. So I guess that's why, but shouldn't be, no.
We saw an uptick with the running game for the Bears last week. Yeah, I guess what we saw is Nagy said that they were going to run more. Montgomery had 27 carries, which I think it was a career day for him on the ground, 135 yards. Was also involved in the passing game. So moving forward now, can we go to this? We know about Philadelphia's rush D, which is pretty solid. But do you feel comfortable rostering David Montgomery?
No, I think again, there's just so many plays here that are way ahead of him. If he had a great week, but predictably so, he had a great week, right? Like it was probably his best matchup, and if there was ever a time for him to get going, it was probably last week. I think this week he goes back to the same old David Montgomery, where it's just not a good enough matchup for him, not a good enough game script, not a good enough anything really. They're dogs on the road, just not what you would want for your running back. So no, not for me.
I kind of like the Jordan Howard narrative.
Sure.
You know, he's going to be at home going against his former team, but he's still someone who is involved in the offense, even though Miles Sanders gets it going with some big plays. But the ground and pound guy is Jordan Howard, so I don't mind him. But I think the only place that I've really liked so far this week in this game, outside of maybe Ertz, is I like the Eagles' defense at home. I think what we saw last week is kind of a resurgence of this defense. In Buffalo, I thought it would have been a tough environment for them. I thought Josh Allen was in a really good spot. But I think if they're able to stop that running game, I don't think Chicago can beat them through the air. I just don't trust Trubisky. So I do feel that they can force some turnovers, and I think that they have the opportunity to be one of the highest scoring defenses on the slate.
How bad is the Bears' offense?
It's putrid. It's
scale of 1 to garbage.
I would say it's garbage.
Yeah, I'd say it's garbage.
I would say
they're awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's no upside for me there, and I feel bad because I talk about it almost every week with Allen Robinson, highly talented wideout.
Oh yeah,
he just hasn't had. Imagine if he's with Aaron Rodgers. Imagine he's with even Stafford or any Pat Mahomes. I mean, any of these guys. It's just his production would be so much greater than even what it is now, and that's pretty outstanding because he's already producing to some extent, but he's always been with garbage quarterbacks.
Yep, feel bad
All
for
right.
him, dude.
The next game, over under 48, Minnesota at Kansas City. 2-point favorites right now for KC. It's kind of switched. It was at 2.5, now going down to 2. You talked about Dalvin Cook a little bit. This game has a pretty high over under, so clearly there's expectations here of production. Where's that production going to come from?
Yeah, this is anytime KC's on the slate, no matter who, and I know this is a decent defense, no matter who, you love KC, man. But how can you fit these guys in? And I think that's the problem, right? Obviously, getting Mahomes back or whatever, I think would be huge for them, right? But I don't know. I think with Matt Moore, I'm just not there, man. Like, do you like this passing game without him? Like, Kelsey hasn't done anything anyway. Like, I feel like Kelsey's just like, he's the default number 1 tight end, but he doesn't do much. And I feel like he's burned me more than ever. I feel like Tyreek is just much better with Mahomes back there, and then everyone else just kind of plays like a hybrid role. It's like the running back situation, I never get right, so I don't even bother with them. And then Sammy Watkins, I think, is only good when everyone else is out. Like, I don't know. It's such a tough team to predict, if you ask me.
I don't think I'm sold on Matt Moore. I mean, it was funny. I was watching this past game, and I mean, this guy was coaching high school, assistant coach, like I think a few weeks prior to him getting picked up.
Really?
So, yeah, you didn't see it? They had a little thing where over the summer he signed with a high school, and then he was the assistant coach, and then next thing you know, he comes out of nowhere. He's the
quarterback of the Chiefs.
Yeah, now he's starting in the game. But I know he'll get the start again this week. I just don't know that the fantasy value for the wideouts has significantly down. There's the upside is not there. So the ceilings have been cut because of the switch at quarterback. And so I don't know if I'm able to roster many of these guys, but I think if you want to go somewhere, where you go is the slot because they've struggled significantly against the slot when it comes to the Vikings pass D. And I'm thinking, I got to be honest with you. I think the Vikings rout the Chiefs this week. I just
bold.
I mean, I just don't. I feel like that the Vikings are more of an established team, and I think that they can get you in both areas. And if Thielen's back, I think that this is an offense that the Chiefs cannot control nor contain. And so, if they're playing from behind, the Chiefs don't have a running game. Let's just throw that out there as well.
Correct.
And so, if you can't run and move the chains, they're going to have the defense where they're going to force Matt Moore to throw. And I think if you can get pressure on him, I just don't see how they can move with this offense. It just doesn't. This offense doesn't do much for me. So, yeah, I mean, if anyone, I'm going to go with a slot guy, maybe Tyreek Hill for like an explosive play, even though he'll be covered by Xavier Rhodes a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I like the Vikings side more than I do the Chiefs.
It's when you look at how they played it last week, you felt like it was Matt Moore's game. And I know he passed 36 times, but 267 for 2 TDs. If that's his up, because if he did it against Green Bay, I get it, and that's a really tough pass defense. But the pass defense doesn't get any easier this week. And I guess they're trolling me in YouTube chat. The way you fit them all in is playing Matt Moore. I mean, I get it, but like he's not really that good, right? He was. I saw him in Miami. He was not that good, man. If you think he's like, 75% of what Mahomes is, then maybe you play him. I think he's like 20% of what Mahomes is. Not even, maybe. Like, I don't know. That's just not good enough. And then all the position players are just expensive to pair with Matt Moore. That's just like, I can't do this. They're not even in a good matchup anyway.
I mean, they're saying in the chat that KCD is nice. Their pass defense has been good, but their run D sucks. I mean, we can pull up the stats right now, but I will tell you, if their run D sucks and you're saying that, you mean to tell me that Cook's not going to run all over them? And if they even do start to put more men in the box and try to contain Cook, then you have 2 deadly weapons on the outside that I don't think that they can keep up with. And so, it's just Minnesota's a very well-established team. You want to talk about, like baseball with the Nationals, very well-established, right? Poised to really win. I think the Vikings are kind of in the same spot. I think where they struggle the most is that slot position. If they can figure out a game plan to control that slot wide receiver, I think this team is very well rounded to make a strong run.
People are playing Matt Moore in cash. I hope that's not right. I hope that's not correct. Someone said they're playing Matt Moore in cash. What on earth? I'm playing cash games for the first time in my life.
So I read a few articles and I watched a couple of things this week where Matt Moore and David Carr, I believe, or Derek Carr, excuse me. Yeah. They're the 2 highest projected guys for cash lineups.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know. It's wild.
What? There's so many good quarterbacks. Why are people going to these guys?
Because, I mean, the price point, first off, and then obviously they don't really have to do.
So, like, if you put me at 2K on the slate and I was starting for the Dolphins, would you play me? No.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You would not play me. So, why are people going to play these guys?
Yo, 2K, that's a bargain, bro.
Yeah, but I'm not going to throw any touchdowns.
I can get McCaffrey, Cook. Oh my God, what a squad! Next game, a little bit different narrative here because this 37 over under just is not appealing. Washington against the Bills, 9.5-point favorites for the Bills. I mean, where are you going? Because I don't think I'm going anywhere.
Garbage against even more garbage, this is not even a 40 total. This is okay. First of all, you can't play anybody on Washington. First of all their players are hot garbage, and they have the worst matchup you could possibly have in Buffalo. And then who do you play from Buffalo? Because these like Cole Beasley or this, like, you know what I mean? Like naked Allen, maybe. Like what are we doing? Like I have no one, dude. Not a single person here, man. Enlighten me if you have someone. I have nobody here. Nobody.
There's really
Bills defense.
Yeah, Bills defense definitely in play, regardless of their price point on either site. I wish that the Bills had a really strong running game because I would go here. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Frank Gore stays somewhat fantasy relevant this week, though, and finds the end zone. But outside of that, I mean, there's just nothing. Maybe John Brown, if you're looking for just someone that's a low price at wide receiver that does get volume, that plays a primary role in the offense, but I can't really go anywhere else.
Yeah, same here. That first of all, if you're watching this game, Lord help you. I don't know what you're doing with your life that you're going to spend a Sunday watching this game. Only Bills fans, and not even a Bills fan.
I've seen a lot of predictions with like scoring, and no one has chose the Bills to score over 16 points, and no one has chose the Redskins to score over 7. So
imagine.
Imagine this is a 40-40 shootout. I wouldn't be surprised. Colts Steelers, 1-point favorites for Steelers at home against the Colts, over under 42.5. We've seen a little bit of a resurgence from the Steelers over the last couple of weeks. Some injuries, though, that really can affect this slate because, as we know, Jalen Samuels is 4K, but James Conner, he suffered some sort of AC joint injury to his shoulder. He's not ruled out yet, but it's not looking good. And so do you go with Jalen Samuels?
Yeah, this is the free square I'm talking about. I don't think anyone else plays, right? I don't think Connor plays. He didn't practice. Benny Snell didn't practice. None of them look like they're going to play in week 9, but they said Jalen Samuels is ready to go. Jalen Samuels is $4,000 flat at running back. If none of the other guys play, there's your free square, right? I mean, they're using running backs more than anyone in the league right now. They don't have anything. They've had a quarterback question mark for the last like 5 weeks, and it's just like, well, running back, just here you go, running back, here you go. Passing game, we'll pass it to the running backs again too, and it's like they use them all. Now there's none of them are left, and it's just Jalen Samuels. So yeah, Jalen Samuels for all the work in the world. And if you're 4K. I'll use you all day, man. I have him locked right now in my lineup, so I don't know. I think a free square.
Like lock, like 150 lineups?
Like 150 lineups, every single one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, what? He's 4K. What? He's 4,000.
I mean, yeah. The only thing is I want to ask you is
if one of these guys are active, then yeah, sure, I won't use him 100%. But I don't think any of those guys play.
But what's Trey Edmonds going to do? Did you know Trey Edmonds? Have you looked up his college stats?
College? No. That's like referencing preseason for me. Same garbage.
No, he didn't even have over 50 or 60 carries in college.
Imagine. Are you kidding?
No, I looked it up. I wanted to see because I thought for some reason he played for Auburn, and so I had the wrong guy. It was Trey Mason.
Yeah, Trey Mason was Auburn guy.
Right. Yeah. So I had the wrong Trey in my head, and I looked it up, and I'm like, what? I'm like, yo, this guy didn't even have a legit college career. So I'm like,
there's nobody back there, dude. It's gonna be all Jalen, but he's gonna be the highest owned player on the week by far, and it's not even close.
But has that news not transpired yet? Is because he's not up there yet on the ownership because everyone's still waiting on the James Conner news?
I guess, but none of them have practiced. They're not. I doubt they play. They look like they were not going to play ever since the game ended last week. So I don't know.
I hope we don't see a Cliff Kingsbury thing with the whole Chase Edmonds that we saw 2 weeks ago, because I will just not be happy about that.
I'll be pissed. No. They said Samuels looks good and he's ready to rock. So I think we're all right.
Jets Dolphins 42.5 over under. Miami +3 at home. Wow, they're getting some love. But we talked about Le'Veon Bell. We talked about this running game that hopefully we see a significant change in volume with how they've utilized him over the last few weeks. I think Adam Gase is an absolutely horrible coach. I think you could attest to that. You're a Dolphins fan. So outside of Le'Veon Bell, can we go with this passing game of the Jets? And I mean, is there anyone on the Dolphins that you are even considering?
Well, I think Le'Veon should touch the ball like 25 times this week. Easiest matchup he's had by far. He hasn't played the Dolphins once yet, so I think he's still in line for, again, if rest of season Le'Veon is the nuts. You couple that with, I wouldn't say the price tag, because the price tag, it's only against the Dolphins can you have 3 straight garbage games, really 5 straight garbage games as Le'Veon Bell, and you get priced up almost $1,000 the next week. He had 6.5 fantasy points last week. This week he is $800 more just because he's playing the Dolphins on DraftKings. So, I mean, it's like that across the industry, really. And It's a well warranted price. Like he has the best matchup on the board. Just can they use him? And if they do, he'll have a fine day. So yeah, I absolutely love Le'Veon for that price.
Any love for Fitzmagic and the passing game of the Dolphins?
No, man. Listen, Kenyon Drake just went ham for the Cardinals in like less than a week of practice. And
Are you surprised? Are you surprised?
No, of course I'm not surprised. I've been saying Kenyon Drake is an amazing runner. He's so good, man. And not Gase or this Bobo coach we have now ever knew how to use this cat. And we're here inventing with Kalen Balaj and nonsense. Some kid ducking when he gets a pass, like disaster of a team. Are you surprised? No, I'm not surprised. Like Kenyon Drake goes ham the very first game he plays for anyone else. Like very talented. We just don't know how to use any of them. Like, sorry, but I already think the coaching changes in Miami were a terrible fail. Horrible, awful team. So no, I still don't have anyone from this team.
All right, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. They're not tempting at all.
No, bro. You can put me Calvin Johnson on this team. I won't play Calvin Johnson.
Wow. Tennessee, Carolina it is then. 3.5-point favorites for Carolina Panthers. We're looking at a 42 over-under. We spoke about the GOAT already in Christian McCaffrey. And what, no matter what matchup, no matter what price point, it just always seems that he's going to get there. But outside of him, are we loving anything for fantasy purposes?
No, it's a lot of CMC. I think if you want Panthers defense, I think you could play Panthers defense. I think I have them as a top 3 defense this week, again, for whatever that's worth, because defenses just don't mean anything. DJ Moore getting some love this week, I think that's fine. If they're trailing, which I don't think they will be, he'll have some sort of a game script. If not, I don't know. I still think he's probably the best pass catcher on the offense, maybe, and it's obviously not a top play this week, but look at the last 3 weeks, 9 targets, 10 targets, 8 targets for DJ Moore. I don't know. That seems pretty healthy to me. Just has to get in the end zone. He has 1 touchdown on the year, but if the target stays in that 8 to 10 range, I think DJ Moore at less than 5K, depending where you're playing, pretty decent price tag, but it's a bunch of CMC for me, honestly.
Carolina defense seems to be kind of showing up somewhat decent for me. Do you see any love there for the Carolina defense?
Yeah. I said I have them as a top 3 defense. I think when comparing to the rest of the field there, I don't know. I just like their price tag a little more. I have the Bills up there too, but I think I like Panthers just a little bit more.
I think one guy that maybe is somewhat interesting, and I would love to get your input on, is Curtis Samuel at 4,300. Yeah, I mean, he's the last 3 games, 11 targets, 6 targets, has found the end zone, has the big play upside. Could you see, I mean, we saw just now what Winston kind of dismantled this Tennessee wide receiver defense when we saw Mike Evans just completely destroy them. Could we see kind of the same type of situation as far as the passing game against some weak areas with the Titans defense?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why, for me, DJ Moore was in play. If you wanted to go Samuel, I think you go Samuel. I think both are fine. You can go whichever one you want. And if you wanted a game stack all together and play them with Allen, then yeah, that certainly makes sense. You kind of know the guys you want coming back on the other side to an extent, because Corey Davis and AJ Brown didn't do anything last week. So if they could somehow produce, I think, this could be a sneaky game stack, even though it's still far down in my list. So it's just picking and choosing McCaffrey. If you wanted to go Samuel over DJ Moore, I think that's fine, but one of them should have a big game.
Yeah, I really like the DJ Moore call. 27 targets over the last 3 weeks, heavily involved in the offense, plays almost every single snap, Manny. So at 4,800, for the amount of time that he's on the field and the volume that he gets, he's kind of somewhat underpriced. Would you agree? Yeah, I really do. He's not a big time guy, right? He's not one of those where it's not, I don't know, pick any top wide receiver. No, it's DJ Moore with Kyle Allen. It's not all that appealing, but if the targets are there and he's that big, like if it's not McCaffrey, it's probably DJ Moore. I think that's a safe bet there. All right, we're heading to the home stretch. And for everyone in here, before we get into the final games for the later games of the Week 9 NFL main slate, just wanted to go ahead and don't forget, if you haven't signed up yet with Osmo.com, you can get 50% off your first month. Just use the promo code NFL Strategy. For any of you guys who are looking to use Fantasy Cruncher software that Manny works for, that Manny is a complete stud in knowing how to utilize it. All the tools and resources that the number one player in the world himself, Alex Baker, aka Awesemo, uses. All the different shows, the articles, the different tools. If you look at the NFL section, it'll break down all these different things that you get, like the top stacks tool, the boomer bust tools, all the different rankings. Use the code NFL Strategy, get 50% off your first month. And we want to once again thank you for everyone in here. If you guys can give us a thumbs up, subscribe, so that way every time there's a show, you're notified and you're alerted, so that way you don't miss out. Final few games, Manny. We're looking at the first 4 o'clock game, Tampa Bay, Seattle, over under 52. A lot of fireworks projected in this matchup. We kind of talked about Chris Carson with him being one of the highest owned running backs this week. But let's talk about this passing game, I guess on both sides, because there's both passing attack opportunities here. Do you go either side, or is this a game stack?
Yeah, I think you can go either side. I think Wilson and Jameis are both in play. I also think anytime you have clear number 1s and 2s, man, I love it. For me, we talked about Carson earlier. It's a really, really tough matchup. If I'm not playing Carson, I still want this game, right? This game still has a humongous total. So I believe it's the highest on the week out of any game, including that Thursday and including all the way to Monday. I think it's the highest projected game all week. When that's the case, yeah, you have to love it. Russell Wilson to his top 2 guys, pretty easy there if you're not playing Carson. And then Jameis Winston to his top 2 guys, pretty easy there too. There's virtually no running game there either. So if it's just going to be a passing fest and a ton of TDs, yeah, give me both Russell Wilson and Jameis. And yeah, I am going to game stack both of them if I play them both.
I want to ask you, who do you have higher rated, Evans or Godwin?
This week I have Godwin. Yeah.
Okay, and then Lockett or Metcalf?
I do have Lockett more than Metcalf.
Okay. And so who do you feel more confident?
It always feels like it's either or. You're totally right, but
it really is. They're like, you know what, man, I'm going to go off this week. You go off next week. And
yeah.
He's like, all right, that's cool. So this week is like the week for Godwin.
Correct.
If you're following the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver flow chart, this is the week to buy Godwin and sell on Evans, I think.
Agreed.
And then I guess when it comes to Wilson or Winston, who would you rather have in this matchup?
I think I like Winston only because they should be behind in this game. I think Seattle wins, right? I think they should be behind. If that's the case, I love garbage time Winston, man, until he throws the pick at the end to seal the game. Everything until that point is always fantastic. And that's when you get all your Mike Evans or all your Chris Godwins. And if, again, 300 plus game should be in the realms for him too. I don't care how you get the fantasy points as long as you get it there. And yeah, I think Winston's probably my guy.
One last question from this game. Winston, 10 turnovers the last 2 games. Any love or would you consider rostering the Seattle Seahawks defense with knowing how how turnover prone Jameis Winston is?
I don't think so. I think I'm okay. I think I'd rather the other defenses, yeah.
All right. Lions, Raiders, 50.5 over under. We have the Raiders 2.5 point favorites at home. Spoke about Josh Jacobs a little bit and Darren Waller being one of the highest owned players this week and the highest owned tight end currently on Osmo's projections. But, there's a passing game in the Detroit Lions here that I want to speak about. And we saw Kenny Golladay kind of come back into form last week. A lot of weapons here. Do you see yourself going to anywhere in the passing game for the Lions?
I don't know. The whole Amendola thing is just like, why is he still a thing, right? Like, I don't think he's a good receiver at all. Why does he have 19 targets the last 2 weeks combined? Like, why does he have a 100-yard game in there? And the other one was a 95. It should have been 100 also. Like, he's just kind of annoying there in the middle when I really just want to play my Galladays or Jones and just call it a week, right? Because of that, I think it's so hard to trust sometimes this offense. If I do, it's just Golladay, but I don't know. I could see Amendola doing it again, especially if he's getting that many targets and he's that involved. So I'd actually say just having an even amount of all of these guys, even though this isn't my favorite offense of the week.
Could we talk about Carr real quick and why he's projected to be chalk?
I don't know why he's projected to be chalk. This is bizarre for me. I don't know why.
I need to know. I need to know what's going on here.
People are obsessed with A Raiders quarterback? I mean, okay, so here's my thing with Carr. Like, since when is he a DFS like staple of people's like this was his only good week. That's it. He's never had a good week so far this season. He hadn't gotten to 20 fantasy points until last week. And that was week 8. That was the first time he got to 20 fantasy points. And now all of a sudden he's chalk. How does this happen? I don't understand.
You know what I think it is? I think it's because they see him on the field for almost all the snaps because he's the quarterback. So they think you're like, you know what? He's got 100% snap count. We got to go ahead and roster him.
I got a trivia question for you. How many 300-yard games does Carr have this season?
I think none.
0. He has not one.
Yeah. I was going to say he's hit value 3 times this year. Just barely though. I mean, like a point or 2 over he's hit value. And I mean, that's because he's hitting value and not even hitting 300 yards at a 5,000 price point, just barely. And I mean, that's just, it just shows that there's really not upside there for you to win tournaments. At least you could pivot elsewhere, I believe, and pay up a little bit. I think there's multiple areas that maybe have a little bit more of a price point, but I think that I think Kyle Allen can outperform him this week.
It's Derek Carr. The guy isn't good. He doesn't throw 300 yards. He doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. He sucks. It's the Raiders. I don't know. If he's chalk, by all means, I'll throw in all my bankroll this week if people are just gonna slam in Derek Carr. Man, I don't know, dude.
Imagine all the cash games have Derek Carr,
I'm telling you, this is gonna be my first week ever playing cash games.
Oh my God. All right. I think this is we have 2 more games. We'll go ahead and finish them off real quick. Browns at Denver. We spoke about Chubb over under 39, 3.5-point favorites or for the Browns, 3.5-point dogs for the Browns for the Broncos at home. Man, Broncos, I get confused with that. We talked about Chubb. I don't know if I really like anything else besides Chubb in this game.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely nothing in this game. In that same radio show where I talked about the matchups for Le'Veon, we talked about the matchups for Odell Beckham, and they're brutal, man. They're brutal. I mean, he hasn't had a good season, and the matchups feel like they get worse. They get a little bit better, I think, the last 3 weeks of the season, but by then it's too late for anyone playing, right? And unless it's DFS, of course. But yeah, it's a lot of Chubb for me. I just love the way he's running. I don't care the matchup or who he's playing against. He did it against New England, really. Had almost 100 yards against San Fran too, and that's that they scored 3 points in that game. You'd like to think they score more than 3 or 13 points in this one. They're favorites. Obviously a 3-down back. Yeah, give me a lot of Chubb.
All right, let's just go straight to the last game because I got nothing more to say about that. I'm 100% on board with you. Green Bay Packers, Los Angeles Chargers, 48 over under, another high scoring predicted game. 3.5-point favorites are the Packers on the road. Talk to me. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been the best quarterback in football the last 2 weeks. I don't think there's even an argument. He's been fantastic, and I don't know how you stop playing him. You know what I mean? I don't know how you. I don't know if Devontae Adams will be back for sure, but I mean, he looks like he can possibly play, and if you're getting a top option back, I mean, that only helps, right? And I know he was limited throughout the week or whatever, but if he does suit up, give me all the Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers that I can. If he doesn't, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has still looked good without him, so it doesn't matter. But I think he's been fantastic. So, yeah, just give me a ton of Aaron Rodgers where I can. I do like running it back with, any one of Keenan, or if you want to go to Mike Williams, I think that's fine. If you want to do any other running backs, I think you're okay there too. And I don't know, it's just setting up to be a really, really good game stack. I'm not sure if the ownership gets there on the Charger side, and that makes it a little bit more appealing.
Rodgers right now, sub 10% on DraftKings and sub 10% on FanDuel. Yet again.
That's great.
I mean, it's crazy because I think it's 6 or 7 out of the 8 games this year, he's hit passes what he was projected. And so, I mean, this is a guy where, I mean, he's somewhat decently affordable too. He's not outrageously priced, and he's going to continue to throw. And I think, is Devontae Adams going to be back this week?
I think so. I mean, he's trending in the right direction. I don't think it's confirmed, but
I think what's been impressive the most is how he's utilized these running backs in the passing game, which helps him as well. So, he's you would think that his passing game would be hindered with Devontae going out, but he's outsourced other ways of being able to find production for his passing game. And just because he throws it to the running back doesn't hurt him. He's still getting credit for all that production.
Of course. Love it.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's all I have to say about that game. Once again, Manny, thank you for joining us. Manny, where can we find you when you're not doing shows with Awesemo?
Yeah, you can troll me on Twitter at mlaura, like my name. You could find all my work at fantasycruncher.com. We keep producing as many things as we can to make you a better player. And if you want to catch my live streams, I'll be live right after this at twitch.tv/mlaura.
And you guys, for me, you can find me at Chris Randone on Twitter and on Instagram. And I just want to thank everyone in here, guys, all 215 of you watching right now. We appreciate you taking the time out of your morning to join us. We appreciate the support. If you can, give us a thumbs up and like this so we can continue to produce content for you guys day in and day out. Look for the NBA fantasy shows later, the other NFL fantasy shows as well. Don't forget to subscribe. But other than that, guys, for week 9, Chris Randone, Manny Laura, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, guys.